They are not your friends.
Really?
No, I don't know. Maybe.
I feel
Any of
a
these friends?
kinship, a companionship. Every time I see this video start, I'm like, oh, sit up straight.
Yeah, that's
It's a good. It's a good reminder for
Yeah.
my posture.
Yeah, you can't see any of those. Let's get rid of this fan.
Yeah, get that fan out of here.
Fan is hideous.
Yeah, I'm not a fan
Boo!
of that fan. Sorry,
Boo!
I'm sorry about that.
At the end of every episode, when we go downstairs to go back to work, everybody always tells us how much they can hear us recording the podcast.
Every time,
Not appreciated.
Every time they tell us.
You'd think it would be.
Yeah.
But it's surprisingly not appreciated.
Before we start the video, here's a fun fact. If you're watching the video here, this comic book right here with Superman and Shazam fighting on the cover is actually one of my favorites this is part of my childhood comic book collection. And I was so excited because Superman and Shazam were together, which was not a thing. It was not a thing up until this point. So I was really excited to see that. And it's a classic comic book cover cop-out. You know what I'm saying?
No.
It gives you this image, and you're like, well, certainly Superman and Shazam are going to be fighting in some sort of factory industrial setup, right? I mean, that's what it looks like.
Right.
No. You get inside, and that's not what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody is reading a Superman comic book. They form magic steel into a shape of Superman, and then that faux statue based on a comic book of Superman fights Shazam.
Sure.
And he's not even in full color. He's just steel colored. So it's an old bait and switch, but I still love the issue, and that's why I brought it here to display today.
There was a habit in the Uncanny X-Men run in the early 2000s where it was always just characters on the cover, and it wasn't them doing anything specifically.
Okay.
And there was one where it was a really cool image of Juggernaut, and it showed how powerful he was and how unstoppable he was. He wasn't even in the comic.
Yeah.
He wasn't even in that issue that week.
Yeah.
That month. So
this is only tangentially related, but did you know that the Dr. Seuss book, There's a Walk-It in My Pocket?
Mm-hmm.
He never says that in the book.
Wow.
He never addresses the walk-it in his
Scandal.
pocket. I know.
All right.
I know.
For that, host Crystal Storm.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me, and I didn't get it.
No,
but
you're not. You're not Crystal Storm, nor did you host this.
I did not, but
episode.
she also said some very nice things on Twitter. So
She doesn't need that from
thanks.
you.
Well, I'm just saying. I know. I appreciated her kind words about the podcast on Twitter. That's all.
Yeah. What were we comics?
Yeah, you really derailed it. I was
Sorry.
talking about Dr. Seuss for a minute there.
Yeah,
You can go back and revisit our Dr. Seuss
Yeah.
episode if you want to deep dive into the archives of all the books. It's called Take a Look at All the Books.
Lost World. Michael Crichton's Lost World.
Yes.
Nobody's ever welcome to Jurassic Park, the Lost World, Jurassic Park. So
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. That doesn't happen.
do they say in the movie? Yes. Yeah. Hammond does. He's before this lost world is found and pillaged.
Classic. Well,
Did you just say the Lost World movie is classic?
Yeah.
All right. I think our friendship is finally cemented. We're finally friends.
But then I shall not say another word. I shall stop there. Okay. Should we?
we should do
let's
the
get into this
podcast.
episode. I'm
That-
excited. This was an exciting. This was an
just-
exciting lead up for me.
Yeah. Well, we definitely ran out of steam there, so we should get onto the podcast.
I've got plenty of steam,
Really?
and I'm sitting up straight.
Powered by your own steam.
You guys tell me if I start.
Yeah. Nick?
Here we go.
Yeah. My grandmother used to told me to sit up straight because you shouldn't be embarrassed by your height.
Huh.
Yeah. She says
So it's kind of a backhanded compliment from
no,
Grandma
no,
there.
she said you shouldn't be embarrassed by being tall.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be ashamed for being tall.
You're not outlandishly tall.
No, I know. I just used
What
to
are you,
slouch.
6 foot?
Almost. Basically. I am. Yes, I'm 6 feet. Look, if we
I'm
set up a
sorry.
dating profile.
I'm not 6 foot. That's fine.
If we set me up a dating profile right now, it would say 6 feet tall.
You're married.
Well, I know that.
I don't think it's an appropriate.
Okay. I'm just saying.
All right.
In that situation.
Yeah.
All right. We're being told to start the podcast.
Okay, let's do it,
And
yeah.
we're being called dummies. All right, here we go.
Fair enough.
This is 189.
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to episode 189 of the All the Book Show, recorded at the David A. Howe Public Library, where we talk book news, author news, and literary news, and sometimes Shazam! Woo!
Did anything happen?
Yeah, the podcast started.
Oh, cool.
It became an even more popular and successful podcast than this.
Really?
Yeah, if
That's
you can
exciting.
imagine.
I can't.
I
cannot.
That's the magic of comic books.
That's
You
the
can't
magic of
even imagine
Shazam.
some
Oh
of this
no,
stuff.
I turned it back.
Oh.
Turned it back to the original.
That's all right.
Well,
we appreciate the viewers we have is just Billy Batson podcast.
all of those lame intro bits we just did were to tell you that this week we're doing a Shazam spotlight.
Shazam!
Not because Eric wanted to, but he's been a good sport about it. the whole time. So I want to thank him for that. We're going to be talking about Shazam and Captain Marvel, and we scored an exclusive interview with Elliot S. Maggin, who is one of the authors of my childhood. Wrote some of my favorite comic books.
Yeah.
As soon as we booked that, I went and like dug through my boxes and was like, "This is one of Maggin's. This is one of Maggin's."
Yeah.
I got a whole slew of them. Very exciting.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking to him a little bit later. Warning: there is a little language in there, but it's funny, so I think that's okay.
I bleeped out
Right. Did you?
I bleeped
Okay.
out the real offenders.
Okay. All right.
He's a comic book writer from the 70s, 80s. So
Yes,
you
he
got
is.
to
Yes,
you got to
he
bleep
is.
some stuff out.
All right, but before we get to that, we are going to talk a little bit about the character of Shazam, and
Just go on.
we saw an advanced screening of the movie, so we can even talk to you about the new Zachary Levi,
Yeah, we saw
Mark
it 2
Strong
weeks ago, but
film.
Mr. Lockbox over here
Yeah,
wouldn't let me say anything.
lock and key, baby.
So I tried last week.
All right, I know you did. I know you did. And
You kept shutting me down.
I absolutely did.
I've never been hit by a class
I
action
appreciate
lawsuit
your
so
restraint.
fast. Class action?
Yeah.
Cease and desist.
Class action would be if there were like 40 different people having the same problem and they decided to band together.
Right.
That's not what
So
happened
39
here.
other people didn't want me to say anything
Right,
until the
right.
Shazam
We don't have a
Spotlight
King of
episode.
Torts situation. For more on King of Torts, check out the John Grisham Spotlight. You can find all the back episodes at soundcloud.com/allthebooks.
And Spotify.
And Spotify. Really anywhere you can find podcasts.
Yeah, but Spotify is like...
That's what the cool kids do?
I think so, actually. Spotify just bought like a podcast. I don't even know how
Really?
you just like... Yeah, we'll just buy this podcast.
All right.
So,
Well, if you want to send us a number, I mean, we'll entertain it.
yeah.
And we should probably start entertaining people as well. Let's jump
I've lost
into
track
our
of
bookmark.
where we are after saying the magic word that turns us into Captain Marvel, Shazam.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth. Well,
Yeah,
there
I
we
don't
go
know
again.
if I don't know if we're a regular podcast.
You know what?
Or
Hold
Shazam
on.
podcast.
Our producer's telling me we should drop the Shazam changing bit because it's not playing.
Okay.
All right, let's jump into our bookmark segment, folks. Let's talk about some of the things that we've been reading. Make some suggestions to you, the folks at home.
Bye.
All right. So I'm
The
gonna
role of Nick will be played by a robot.
Thank you. I'm gonna start. Okay. So here are some of the graphic novels that I read. This chunky Shazam volume that you see in front of you here, I had read a lot of these as a kid, and so this was a fun reread
Unless you're
for me.
a podcast listener, don't be confused by that.
Yeah. So it's Showcase Shazam. It says volume 1, but there's only one volume, so it's a little misleading.
Well,
but
which is it?
this was so much fun. This is straight the 70s run, almost the whole thing. Couple of missing issues in there. You get some Shazam family. It was so fun. It was so fun. It brought back a lot of good memories.
Oh.
Eric and I both read The Power of Hope, which is by Paul Dini, art by Alex Ross. Alex Ross has done other things like Justice and Kingdom Come, and what else? Marvels. Yep. Okay. Pretty good story.
A lot of coffee table books.
Kind of a dark, sad Shazam story there from
You think it's darker than I do?
Paul Dini. Well, I think it deals with darker issues than Shazam typically deals with.
Yeah. Are we
which
talking
was
about them later?
Kind of nice. We will talk about it later.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I read DC Superhero Girls Search for Atlantis because Eric finally bought it.
Mm-hmm.
I got the next one. I got an advanced preview from DC, so I can't talk about it yet.
Okay.
But I do like this series. It's very fun. It's good for like the 10 to 12-year-old range, I think. The stories are entertaining.
What
so
about 9?
Like, I still enjoy them. Yeah, 9 could get in there. Sure.
8?
Yeah, 8 maybe.
7?
That's pushing it. This is a fun, long-running series. It takes
Yeah, we got all of them.
focuses on the women characters in DC Comics and
In high school.
in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, all the the heroes and the villains. So you got Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. Poison Ivy's like a regular too, right?
She is. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Poison Ivy and Harley are both regulars.
Katana.
Anyway,
Is Katana considered a hero these days?
yeah,
All right.
I would say so.
I didn't know if she was a villain. Who am I
Yeah,
thinking
well,
of then?
I don't know.
The Batman villain.
I don't know.
Shiva?
Shiva.
Okay.
Shiva.
All right, back to the show.
Yeah. Shiva's more of a anyway.
Yeah.
And finally, I read Scooby-Doo Apocalypse Volume 2. So this is part of the it's a DC Comics imprint where they're
Oh, is it?
where they're taking Hanna-Barbera comics. Like Future
Right.
Quest was one that I read a few years back. It was
Flintstones.
crazy. Flintstones is very dark.
Right.
Darker than this Shazam comic, I'll tell you that.
Uh-huh.
Scooby Apocalypse. Basically, you have the Scooby Gang,
Snagglepuss.
and and Velma has accidentally created a doomsday scenario in which basically everyone but the Scooby Gang is like a zombie now.
Uh-oh.
And they're trying to put it back. First volume was fun. Second volume, I think, kind of forgot that it was doing a Scooby-Doo thing. It was just a zombie story, which this guy was not all about.
Yeah.
I think it's
Nick was pointing at himself when he said this guy. I haven't read it.
I think from context clues they would have known that. But
Well, you have to let people know who this guy is.
okay,
if
I'm
they're
just going to take a
listening.
nap while you do. All right. I finished some novels. I finished The Chef by James Patterson and Max Delalo. This is a funny one because We spent so long talking about how the synopsis says celebrity chef detective man has to prove that he's not a murderer, which is not part of the plot. Not part of the plot.
Is he going to have a sequel? The Chef 2?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. It might.
Yeah.
It might.
Yeah.
What's
his speciality? He has a food truck.
It was in New Orleans. It was like a gumbo and that sort of thing. It was one of those ones where you could kind of feel that it was written by committee because there was a lot of ideas that I think like could have been refined so that they did make sense.
Right.
You spent a lot of times being like, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Rather than just like rolling with it.
Right.
But it was fun. It was quick. The audiobook was fun. So I read that. I read Razor's Edge by Martha Wells. This is for a sci-fi book club I'm doing with my pals. I really like it. I've got to say, I've not been on a hot streak with Star Wars books.
Empire and Rebellion.
Why are you saying
it's like
that?
the subtitle.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's what's interesting about that, and we'll talk about this in a few weeks when we chat with Martha Wells. But this is a thing where the original plan was to have top tier sci-fi authors write a series of Star Wars books.
Yeah.
So they did a Han Solo one with James S.A. Corey, author of the Expanse series. They did Razor's Edge, which focuses on Leia by Martha Wells, and then we're planning to continue, and then
Disney
the mouse showed up. But I really enjoyed this.
Can we call it the House of Mouse anymore? It seems like that's too big.
You
too
need
small.
like the castle, the planet. It's Mickey's world, right? We're just living in it.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So that was good. I like that. It was a good take on the Leia character.
Or like Steamroller Mickey.
Yeah.
Steamroller Willie.
Yeah. Right, instead of Steamboat.
Yeah.
I get it. It's a deep dive.
Thank you.
And then I read Please Don't Tell by Jeff Gottesfield.
Yeah, what is this?
It's a junior novel.
Oh.
Just a fun little quick
Rhino
read.
Press.
Yeah, I liked it.
Why'd you pick this up?
Because we're going to be talking to the author in a few weeks. And this was one of the ones of his that I haven't read yet. So I thought I'd read it. You've got one of his dog books.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then let's see. What am I currently reading?
The Anonymous Girl.
I'm reading The Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks. And who's the second author on that? Do you see?
Sarah Pekkanen.
Thank you. Author of The Wife Between Us, which I very much enjoyed. I'm not enjoying this one on the same level, but when things come together in the end, maybe it'll be a different story.
Okay.
Right now, enjoyable, not great.
All right.
I'm reading Trunk Music by Michael Connolly.
Yeah.
This is one of the Harry Bosch novels,
So
and I'm digging it.
This is music based on the character Trunks from Dragon Ball Z.
It is not.
Oh.
It in no way is that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
The cover,
confusing.
The cover is like a road with
In
a car looking
hindsight.
at it, and I just thought,
Trunks
empty road,
from
Trunks, Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. Vegeta's son.
Boy, I came close to saying Cowboy Bebop, and that would have been embarrassing. Finally, I'm reading Supergirl: The Silver Age, Volume 1.
Who does the cover for this? Is this original art from the series, or is this
No, I think
Darwin Cook?
it's a newer. It looks like a Darwin Cook. Yeah. I bring this up for two reasons. Okay.
Oh.
I started reading this because over the weekend, not only did Batman hit his 80th, Supergirl hit her 60th.
That's not very polite to share.
Oh, sorry. You never tell. So I was going to read some of these classic Supergirl stories. And it's funny because in preparation for this episode, I read the first 6 issues of Mary Marvel from the 40s, the 1940s. Right. And she's just like Mary Marvel's just all in. She's just like punching murderers and just doing like superhero stuff. Just doesn't. She's just a full-fledged superhero. Okay.
Right.
Supergirl, like 30 years later, shows up, and Superman's basically like, "Oh yeah, I don't want these attachments. You're gonna have to go live in an orphanage."
Wow.
I wish I was kidding. And so she goes, lives in an orphanage, and Superman is like, "You can't tell anyone that you have powers. You just live in this orphanage, and you don't tell anyone." And that's the story. She's just like hiding in pigtails, being like, oh, and like trying to help people get adopted and trying to prevent herself from being adopted.
Right.
It's insane and so stupid.
Okay.
One of them, she pretends to be like some sort of fairy, like a tooth fairy. So it's terrible. And her hair is terrible, which I'm just saying.
All right.
I'm just saying the art is bad.
Yeah.
The stories are so bad and so dated, even for 1959. It's a real clunker.
All right.
So that's it for me. That's what I've been reading.
Did you see the Mortal Engines movie?
Oh, yeah. I thought you'd want to go first. But my wife's been wanting to see the Mortal Engines movies. And I was like, yeah, okay. I want to see that too. So we finally checked it out from the library. We put it in. We watched about 15 minutes. And she was like, okay, I don't think we should watch this. And I was like, no. I can do it. And she was like, you really can't. Let's watch something else. Okay. Because it was not my jam. So we stopped about 15 minutes in. And it seemed very like an ABC Family miniseries from 2002. So I didn't finish it. She finished it, and her takeaway was basically like, it was enjoyable, but the weaknesses were very, very prominent and very obvious.
Yeah.
So not for me. Are you going to, I mean, this is a YA series.
We'll probably watch it, yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the books? Did they do well?
They're older books.
Okay.
We do have them. We have the whole trilogy in our collection.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you remember the author on these? I don't.
Yes.
Okay.
Starts with an O. Opal? Look, you look at it. I'll look it up while you talk about the Twilight Zone.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yes. Well, then last night we watched the premiere of the new 2019 Twilight Zone show.
Yeah, you watched the Twilight Show.
I watched the Twilight Show. Yeah. So I'm a fan of the old school Twilight Zone, although Eric...
Philip Reeves.
Thank you. Eric claims I'm not a fan of the old Twilight Zone show.
You haven't seen any of the episodes.
I have seen many episodes.
You haven't seen any of the episodes.
So many of them.
All the classic ones people talk about, you're always like, I don't like that one.
Not true.
But like, remember the one with Burgess Meredith? You're
I've
like,
seen
that's
it.
a terrible one.
I've seen it.
Remember when Shatner's on a plane and you hate it? No, I'm kidding.
I don't understand
you know
this
what?
bit. What?
You're in the Twilight Zone where everyone thinks you hate the Twilight Zone.
So I've been very excited about this Twilight Zone reboot.
Yeah.
I've been waiting. I've been really wanting
Jordan
to see
Peele.
it. We watched the 2 episodes last night.
Right.
The comedian.
Can I tell you before you tell me what you think of them?
Yes.
I read a review, but I didn't read too far into it, that liked one and didn't like the other one.
Yeah.
We'll see which one.
I think the comedian was pretty good. It was a pretty good. The premise was good. It kind of like it hit all the marks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it was like stellar.
Okay.
I think that Tracy Morgan was very good in it and very creepy. And I can't remember the main actor's name. Who was in The Big Sleep and other things like that. Thanks for fact checking, buddy. So it was one of those things where it was like I understood the premise. It was pretty good. I don't think it was like expertly done. I think if it was in like a long running series, I would it felt to me like one where you're like, yeah, that was an okay episode. You wasn't
meant
bad.
The Big Sick with Camille Nahaji.
Ooh, I'm sorry for putting that on you, but that is what I mean. And he was very good in it. The second one was kind of a take on the old Shatner episode where they're up on the plane and Adam Scott is the lead in that and thinks something's going wrong.
Right.
That was not well done. I didn't think it's kind of dark, which worked. It's not that it felt un-Twilight Zone-y, but it left you with a lot of like, well, why? Like, what was the purpose? And I don't think it really. I think that one like tonally was a little off.
Okay,
that's all.
Cool.
But I'm still excited about it. But it was not mind blowing as I might have wanted it to be.
Have you ever watched a Twilight Zone episode and your mind was blown?
I mean, some of the Burgess Meredith one is the one that always sticks with me because it's so depressing.
Yeah.
I
guess he could just go find other glasses.
He could.
So
yeah, he could.
I love the Twilight Zone. I like them.
Yeah.
And but no, there's never been an episode I'm like, she was a mannequin. It's just I like the twist and everything, but I don't think I would ever say any of them has ever blown my mind. Usually I just kind of like nod silently like, yes,
contemplative.
Right. We're the robots.
It was kind of hard to take Jordan Peele seriously, like when he was on screen.
Oh, yeah.
Because he did a good job, but it's just like it could be a Key and Peele sketch. You know what I mean? It just
that's because
I don't know.
The Key and Peele sketches, a lot of them will always start very straight.
Yeah,
and then like they can just blow up.
Yeah.
And so, but they were always they were so well done. Like some of the more serious ones, like this feels like a real intense fit, and then it blows up. So.
Then it turns. So. I was not super impressed, but I am going to continue watching.
Well, you have to. You pay for that CBS app.
I sure do. Eric.
I'll never get to watch this because I'm not paying for that.
I hope you don't. No,
what?
I hope you don't see it.
You hope I never see it?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
All right, what have you been reading, buddy?
All right, I finished 2 Martha Wells books. I finished Why Can't I Remember the third book. Which one did you read?
I read Murderbot Diaries.
Right. What was the second book?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I finished Exit Strategy. It was book 4. Actually, book 3, which is the name of the book I can't remember right now. It's something Protocol. Rogue Protocol?
Artificial Conditioning.
Artificial Conditioning, which is different than Rogue Protocol. Rogue Protocol is book 2. Artificial Conditioning, book 3. How many times can I say those book numbers? It was probably.
I mean, you've said them wrong each time. So.
It was probably my favorite of the 4. The ending kind of hit me. In a sad way, but book 4 ends well, leaves doors open for more adventures in this world, and we'll be talking to Martha Wells, author of the Murderbot Diaries, along with many other books, many fantasy and sci-fi books, Star Wars and Stargate Atlantis included.
Yes.
So we'll be talking to her in a couple of episodes. But yeah, we have all 4 of these in our collection here at the library. They're quick reads. They're only about 200 pages. You can read through these in an afternoon. And I recommend doing so.
Yeah, and while we're talking about that, we should offer our congratulations to Martha Wells, who was just nominated for a Hugo for Best Novella for Artificial Condition, which is book 2.
The Hugo Award noms out?
They were just announced. Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
All right. Well, I got to read them.
Yeah, you do. You can find the full list of the nominees for the Hugo Awards on hugooawards.org.
I need to. Oh, I also finished Gambit Classic. Well, not Gambit Classic. Gambit: The Complete Collection, Book 2.
First you charge the card, then you blow it up.
Yeah. Is that Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast?
No, that was the celebrity chef from the James Patterson book Chef.
I don't know if listeners will know this, but certain people in my life will know that I wanted Marvel to put on this Gambit comic series from 1999 on the Marvel Unlimited app for a long time. And I used to troll them on Twitter, posting what they had shared that week instead of the rest of this Gambit series.
That was a good time.
But
good times were had.
Now I feel bad because I was kind of let down by this 25-issue run.
I'm a little surprised that you thought that it was going to be good.
It kind of has a decent reputation of being a very
does it? Okay.
Good.
That's kind of a rough time, I think, the 90s.
There's
for X-Men comics.
There's a few issues in here where things kind of pick up because a bunch of assassins and Marvel villains have been hired to kill Gambit. So you got Bullseye, you got the Constrictor, you got Crossbones, you have Batrock. So you have all these like other characters chasing. You have Deadpool. You have them all chasing after Gambit, and that's like a fun 4-issue run. But then it's just dealing with some other stuff that I don't dig, an alternate reality Gambit and everything. This is back. This is the run where he was able to control his power so that he could create a kinetic field so that him and Rogue could hold hands and kiss. So if Rogue and Gambit kissing is what you want, you're gonna want to read the Gambit Collection Part 2. About 1 issue in here. So.
You know what? That's a very weird way to spin that, but I accept it. I accept it.
Yeah. There's stuff in, but yes, late 90s, 1999 to 2001, it was a strange time for the X-Men. Yeah. Right before the movie and then after the movie, a lot of stuff was in flux. So anyway, what else? Oh, I got to read Ghost by Jason Reynolds. I need to start this. We're doing it as a book club for 8th grade.
Okay.
So I need to read this. I have it on my Kindle. It'll be a quick read. And then...
And Jason Reynolds won the Hugo Award last year, right? Didn't he, for Long Way Down? Didn't he?
Hugo. You're thinking Edgar.
I'm sorry. I mean Edgar, yes.
For
so many awards.
Yes. Long Way Down was good.
The Edgar Awards are coming out this weekend, so we'll be talking about Edgar's next week.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So maybe he did a two-peat.
Maybe.
I guess you could just say repeat at that point.
Yeah, two-peat.
Yeah, two-peat.
Yeah. That's the international title for Pete and Pete.
Two-peat.
Yeah. In France, they know it as two-peat.
Sure they do.
I love Saturday mornings. It's time for two-peat.
Oh, the French.
Like Batman Beyond was called Batman of Tomorrow.
Oh, I like that.
Overseas. So I remember being in Japan and seeing a commercial for it. And it's like, this Saturday, Batman of Tomorrow. I was like, sweet. It was an episode I'd already seen, but it felt like I was watching it all over again.
It was Batman of Tomorrow.
I finished Brian Michael Bendis' Uncanny X-Men run.
Hey, congratulations. I know it's been a hard road for you.
In my comic book reading, I've been trying to catch up to stuff so I can get to where I left off with the X-Men on some stuff.
I hear you.
And you're right. This is terrible. It's like 6 volumes. 6 volumes. I think maybe there's 3 issues in all 6 trade paperbacks that I was able to go like, yes, this is fine. But man, do I hate him writing the X-Men and teams in general, but specifically X-Men.
I know. I warmed a little bit to his Superman, but I know what you mean.
I still have to read his all-new X-Men with like the time traveling team.
I like that. I like that run. But that goes off the rails. It really does.
Just said our friendship was cemented.
Yeah, I love time travel, and I like the classic team. I know that I'm in the minority on that, but I do.
It's like, cool, Angel, Beast without the fur, and he's a teenager who used to play football. It's just... I don't know.
I think you're purposely not selling it well.
Oh, okay. Let me up it. Jean Grey, where she's the girl. Yeah, I guess I have to read it. So this was I was doing my due diligence as an X-Men fan.
Good for you.
So,
Good for you.
That's it. That's all I've got.
Oh.
I didn't watch anything fun.
Okay.
Oh, I watched Logan because I just beat the game The Last of Us,
Yes.
which is supposed to be one of the greatest games of all time. Maybe not for me. It's not the greatest game of all time, but it made me want to watch Logan. So
Okay.
I did. I had an emotional breakdown.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to play that game. Should I not?
You might like it. A lot of people hold it up as like it's great. It's like the story's like movie quality, but I've never looked down at video game storytelling in a way that when they do it like a movie, I think it's that impressive. So I'm usually fine with game stories and how they're presented. And the story didn't move me. I didn't think it was as depressing as people say. It's a fine game. It's kind of told in like 4 segments, and I liked the 3rd segment the most.
Okay.
And then the rest of it was fine.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
all right.
That's it for the old bookmark?
Yeah.
All right.
I guess we got to get to Shazam. Oh no.
We do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to dive right in because we got a nice interview going, and we wanted to talk a little bit about the character. So,
the way you say we have a nice interview going makes it sound
Yeah.
like you're interviewing me, and it's just a nice.
yeah,
time for you.
we've got a nice camaraderie being
Yeah.
established here at the table today. All right. So I usually like to start when we're doing this kind of thing to figure out like how you first became aware of this character. So I'll pose the question to you first. Go ahead.
I guess it would be when I read Kingdom Come.
Really? That late?
By Mark Waid and Alex Ross. There it is. And
But I mean, certainly you were aware of the character before that, or no?
I must have been able to recognize the costume in the face.
Okay.
But mainly because of Alex Ross. I think I must have read like some Alex Ross art books.
I see.
And seen that character. But until I actually sat down and read Kingdom Come, I hadn't read a single thing that had Captain Marvel in it. Shazam.
I'm only realizing like later because the DC Universe app has put the whole 70s Shazam Saturday morning live action kid show on the app, so I've been watching it with my son, and it's like bringing back weird memories because I remember watching something with Shazam when I was really little and thinking like, well, that's not quite Superman though, is it?
Oh, okay.
And I thought it was the serial because I liked the old black and white Batman serials. But I went and took a look at the old Shazam serial, and I've definitely never seen that.
Yeah.
So I think I'm actually remembering like the repeats of that 70s show.
The 2 Pete's.
Yeah.
The 2 Pete's of Shazam.
Yeah, that's as they say in France. So I was aware of that. I was aware of like that. He wasn't on Super Friends. I think maybe he did a one-off episode at some point, but I don't remember him from like cartoons. Yeah. And there was a special Shazam show, but I don't think that was like really in the rotation when I was a kid. So
I think that's because of the legal issues.
Yeah.
Shazam could beat anybody except for the lawyers.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think I read a lot of just the Shazam in comics. So this was the 70s and 80s comics. Were really kind of like the sweet spot for me when I was a kid. Like those were the ones I went for. But I also really liked the super early stuff. So I think before we kind of sat down to do a little refresher on Shazam for this episode, I probably read more of the old school like C.C. Beck 50s run than I had of anything else newer. So I had the issue where he fought Superman, and of course he shows up in other things, but I think it was just sort of like my awareness of the character and that TV show. And I never had action figures or toys or anything.
Probably for legal reasons they couldn't even put out.
I guess so. Yeah. All right, so the first thing you read then was Kingdom Come with Shazam. And tell me a little bit about Kingdom Come. Like how is Shazam?
Have you not read Kingdom Come?
I haven't, no.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Kingdom Come is set in, like, the future, slightly dystopian. It's been a while since I read it, so I can't remember who, like, the villain is. I think, you know what? It's the classic, like, DC heroes are kind of not popular anymore. People don't like them. They're not really helping anymore. And a new wave of younger heroes are showing up. And it's kind of a critique on the 90s. Like almost paramilitary superheroes that showed up. Like there's a character in there, I think his name is Maggin, and he's kind of based around like Cable. Just guys who had like all the character design was metal arms, glowing eyes, 2 giant guns that they can't even pull out of the holster.
Look out.
Swords. So that was the idea, and then things kind of get screwed up, and so the classic heroes have to step in. Batman has to stop trying to control everything. Superman has to go be Superman again. Shazam is being controlled in that one.
Okay.
I think he's like an adult Billy.
Okay.
But he's being kind of mind controlled. I think Brainiac is an important role in there. And then, boom, there's a big fight and everything.
Okay.
So I think him and Superman might fight, but I can't remember.
Pretty well utilized in it, would you say, the character?
I mean, he's a big role in it. But he's not used for a while, and then he kind of shows up as like the oh no moment where like I can't remember when he helps out again, but he's hinted at, and then when he becomes Shazam, you're like, oh snap,
Okay,
change.
interesting.
So,
Well, I know aside from working on the collection, Elliot S. Maggin also wrote a novelization for it.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's available that way as well.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the history of Captain Marvel,
Wait.
Shazam.
Oh, you already
himself.
said what you did.
Yeah, I did. So he first appeared basically as a response to Superman in the 30s. They were like, oh, boy, these are good. So Fawcett Comics was like, well, we need something. And so Shazam was born.
Was Robin Williams as Mork, the editor of Fawcett Comics, when he was doing that? Oh, this is good. Whoa, we got to get a comic out there.
Yeah, fair.
Sorry.
So Shazam started. I think it was in Wiz Comics before he moved on to his own. Stupid. Wiz Comics before he moved on to his own title, and then the character was pretty quickly. It was spun out after that. So if you're not familiar with the character, basically a child is chosen by a wizard to be the champion.
Yeah.
And so when he says the wizard's name, which is Shazam, he gives the powers of Captain Marvel and transforms into a big
Strength of Hercules,
Cary Grant-esque man. So actually, I read that the look was actually based on Fred McMurray from like a lot of old Disney, My Three Sons, a lot of old Disney movies, The Absent-Minded Professor and things, which you can totally see in some of those old comics.
All right.
Very classic looks. But so Shazam started, and then the family expanded a little bit. So Dr. Sivana was the villain who showed up right away, and then Billy had a twin sister, Mary, who also was able to get powers by saying Shazam and become Mary Marvel. And then they had a friend, Freddie Freeman, who when he said Captain Marvel, became Captain Marvel Jr., and they were a little team.
Yeah.
And then they each got their own books and would appear regularly together. So Shazam, the Shazam or Captain Marvel title was very, very straightforward superhero.
Right.
Big, like, supervillain sort of things. The Mary Marvel book is still, she's pretty tough. And I was thinking about this. I think that if not the first, she was one of the first female superheroes to like have their own title and just be a big, strong, long-lasting presence. There's so many superheroes coming out at that time that nobody did anything with. So maybe there was somebody who predated her. But I think as far as like anybody with any kind of longevity, she was really there first and was able to be a lot more heroic than Supergirl, as I said earlier. But even Wonder Woman was like the secretary of the Justice League, So it's like she was. So that's what I mean. So Mary was just able to like, even in the first 6 issues, there's one where Billy is there and there's this problem and he's like, shit. She's like, no, I got this,
Right.
And she goes off and fights it, which is cool for the 40s, So it's pretty impressive. So she had her own thing, and then it continued to be a supporting feature for the main title. And then Captain Marvel Jr. had his own stories, and they were a little bit more. It was the 40s and 50s, so to say that they're edgy is not really true. But when you compare it to the other ones, Freddy's book was definitely the edgiest of the 3. His stories were a little bit more serious, a little bit darker.
Yeah,
and they were going strong. They were doing well right up until 1953, when DC Comics was like, no, we've had enough of this. And so then we go into a big lawsuit where basically they say that Shazam or Captain Marvel is a copyright infringement on Superman.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of an interesting commentary on the time, because now if a strong hero who can fly showed up with a cape, I don't think anybody would jump to like, what a Superman clone.
Yeah, that stuff kept happening. I mean, Nintendo had a lawsuit with Universal sued Nintendo for Donkey Kong over King Kong.
Oh.
But lost because King Kong was in the public domain. So, but yeah, I think for a long time, even I don't know when, sometime like maybe after that whole Universal thing, people were like, oh, we can't just sue over any appearance thing.
Well, when you break the two characters down, they're
so different.
Yeah, I mean they can fly, they're strong.
Yeah.
they have black hair. But other than that, it's like their backgrounds are so different. The whole worlds are completely different. So it's funny that it went as far as it did. But basically, I mean, that kind of put an embargo on Shazam for 20 years, and he was just gone. They were just like, we're not publishing this anymore, and then it stayed that way until. And there were some clones that came up that were like, this is kind of like it, but nothing really stuck, and you didn't see Shazam again until 1973.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Would you like to go into the interview now?
Sure. Sorry, I was just looking at some of the stuff to talk about.
All right.
Yeah, we can go into the interview.
All right.
Nick might need to explain a few things before we go into the interview.
So this is what the scenario was at the time. Shazam had been off the racks for 20 years. He was a character that a lot of people had nostalgia for, but he wasn't. He just was nowhere unless you could track down the old back issues. So at the time, Julie Schwartz was one of the main editors at DC. He worked on Superman for a long time, was editor on Superman for a very long time, and in his own right was a very prolific comic author and editor and all that. Julie Schwartz created the character Adam Strange. He's the one who the one who really kind of created Barry Allen in a sense, brought this new version of the Flash forward. He was responsible for taking a lot of those classic heroes like Green Lantern, who had a history with the JSA in the early days, and Julie Schwartz kind of brought them back into the mainstream and with the new versions and everything. So incredibly prolific creator and just steady hand over at DC. He was one of the guys who, when I was reading comic books, it would always be like a little asterisk, and this happened in issue 49, Julie.
Right.
So it's just a name that I always knew.
Yep.
And so they were just looking from some ways to branch out, to bring some new characters, reach some new audiences. So the idea of Shazam came back up. So primary author on the reboot series was Denny O'Neil, who is insanely prolific. Wrote one of my great favorite Superman stories, Kryptonite No More, tons of Batman stuff. You know,
tons.
Denny.
Yes, I do. Yeah,
okay, you're not jumping in here.
Ra's al Ghul. Sorry.
Yeah.
Created Ra's al Ghul. Wrote a lot of. Denny O'Neil is responsible for bringing Batman back to like a sense of darkness after like the Adam West series kind of ended. And Batman I'll probably would have gone into like some obscurity.
Well, Denny's taken the character under the sort of the guidance of Julie Schwartz, who was like, we can't have all this goofy stuff. Right. Julie was the one who was like, forget Batmite, forget all this like super goofy campy stuff. We're gonna do like a real character again.
Do you think he was like, forget all this super goofy stuff,
forget
Mom?
This jazz. Yeah, he was played by Tony Bennett, so that made perfect sense.
It's gotta be cool, Daddy-o.
So anyway, they turned their attention to bringing back Shazam. So Denny was kind of the lead writer, and then he and Elliot S. Maggin began sort of trading off, and Elliot would write a lot of the stories.
Yeah, Maggin would say Shazam, and he would turn into Danny O'Neil, and then Danny O'Neil would chase Shazam and turn back to Maggin.
Exactly. So Elliot S. Maggin works a lot on Shazam, and is most widely known for his Superman work, where he was the lead writer for Superman for over 15 years. And a lot of the classic stuff about the character that I love came from the Elliot S. Maggin run. So we reached out to Elliot, and he was willing to sit down and chat with us for a while about the history of Shazam, and then, of course, some of his other work as well. So let's do it.
All right. Podcast recording is paused. Let's switch over to the stream. So that we can play this interview. Just got to make sure it works. Nope. Nope. But we're still here.
Would you like me to keep talking?
Yeah. Just chat while I get this thing working.
So this interview, it's funny.
Slow down.
Sorry. I was we were wanting to do this episode, and I was trying to think like it would be really nice to have somebody from the comic industry to get in here. And so there were a couple of people that I was thinking about approaching, trying to find contact info, and I've long been familiar with Elliot S. Maggin and his work, just the comics from my childhood.
Academy of Comic Book Arts.
I reached out to him, and
and Saul Harrison was up there, showing off all these promotional doodads. He had this big Shazam button and comic shop dumps and candy.
There's a lot of things I'd love to ask you, but we thought we'd kind of focus on Shazam, Captain Marvel today. So Shazam as a character it has kind of an interesting history because of that big 20-year gap where he just totally vanished. So I wonder if
Yeah.
if you could talk a little bit about the process of bringing him back and what it was like to work on that first run where Shazam was kind of back in the hands of DC or in the hands for the first time.
Well, first of all, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if we approached it the best way we could have, but we tried a bunch of stuff. I remember we're sitting at an ACBA meeting. You remember ACBA?
Mm-hmm.
Academy of Comic Book Arts?
Yeah.
And Saul Harrison was up there showing off all these promotional doodads. He had this big Shazam button and comic shop dumps and candy store dumps and all sorts of promotional nonsense. And then he said, well, I didn't know about any of this stuff, and I'm writing this series. He said, I know about the button because I own one.
Right.
Other than that, I wasn't consulted and wasn't told anything.
So was it an exciting project to work on? Like, was it a...
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay. Was it one you were assigned to, or was it
one you... It was fun to meet C.C. Beck. He was such a pain in the ass, but he was fun.
Please, so C.C. Beck goes back to the Fawcett comic days, doesn't he? I mean, he was on the original...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was I guess he was the original artist on it. Otto Binder and C.C. Beck did the original series.
Yeah, so that's fascinating. That I mean, after 20 years to come back to the character like that, I'm sure that was interesting for him.
Yeah, he had a great time, and then he decided he was the editor after a while.
Oh.
So eventually, Julie got pissed at that and just let him go.
Right. Oh, wow.
He kept changing scripts and telling us that what format we should write scripts in and so forth. And he thought Captain Marvel was his family.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's understandable him feeling some ownership over it, but I guess that would take some fun out of writing it. I thought it was unique the way that the 20-year gap was actually addressed in the comics. You know, that was actually part of the story, that the whole Marvel crew had been in suspended animation for so long. So that was interesting. Yeah. And I liked the way...
I mean, it was a rationale.
Yeah. Well, I like the way the 70s run still had the sort of the 50s vibe. I wonder, how intentional was that? Were you guys trying to?
It was absolutely intentional. We were trying to pick up where it had left off, because we talked about it. We decided that it was artificially stopped, and it was popular. It was working. You know, superhero series in general were kind of on the decline in the early 50s, but the Captain Marvel series wasn't. It was losing some circulation, but nothing appreciable. And I think Fawcett just didn't want to continue to pursue a lawsuit that had been going on for 10 years.
Right. Well, this is some, like, the 70s and 80s comics were, like, when I was a kid, digging through the quarter boxes and stuff, like, these were the ones that I really wanted, and it was fun to sort of revisit that in preparation for this episode, because I like the way that the Shazam comics really had such a distinctive style versus the other comics that were written as contemporary. So I think that really stands out.
Yeah, we were turning our skin inside out for years, trying to figure out how to get the kid audience back.
Yeah.
And we really never did. The fanboys, when we were kids, grew up, and their replacements never came in. I mean, I got involved with Atari around that time.
Okay.
I was designing games for Atari, and it occurred to me that what was going on was that the audience wasn't changing. It's just that what they were interested in was changing. Mm-hmm. It was more available. You know, and I kept telling Julie, well, Shakespeare was competing with cockfights and fistfights and public executions and so forth. And Shakespeare managed to make a living. We can do it. You know, and they kind of did. I mean, they figured out how to change the distribution system so that the profit margin was a little greater by going through comic shops, and they actually increased circulation that way.
Oh, wow.
To some extent. You know, one of the problems was that when we were distributing through 7-Elevens and candy stores, all the distribution, all the circulation numbers were unreliable. People would return covers of books and then keep the books and resell them for a nickel.
Oh, I mean, we see that just with regular prose fiction. That happens sometimes still.
Yeah, sure. So they couldn't do that with comic shops
that would complicate it.
Because they had to be bought outright. So that worked. You know, I mean, I learned to to read in the barbershop down the street because Andy, the guy who cut my hair, collected all the comic books that came out and put them on this big table, and I would go hang out there. And so by the time I was 4 or 5, I was reading like a 10-year-old.
Well, there's still a great gateway, kids who, we see it all the time, kids come into the library who don't want to read a book per se, but then they see a comic book or graphic novel, and they're like, oh, I'll read that. So it's a good way, it's a good gateway.
And video games are, another kind of literacy. I've been telling people for years.
Absolutely.
Nobody believes me. But you believe me. That's good.
I do.
Basically it was an attempt to get the kids' market back.
Right.
And it didn't work, at least not with this product. And so they changed it into a character that I just don't buy living in the same universe as Superman. I mean, I used him quite a bit in Kingdom Come, the refurbished version of him.
Right.
But I really never bought it. They wanted, people thought when I did the Captain Thunder story for Superman, people thought it was because there were some legal issues or there were some copyright issues or something. There were no issues. The only issue was I didn't believe they lived in the same universe.
Yeah,
right.
When they did a Spider-Man Superman crossover, I was very jealous of Jerry Conway. He got to write it, and they didn't even ask me.
Yeah.
And he just didn't justify it. I said I would have spent 3 pages trying to figure out how to get Superman and Spider-Man in the same universe.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. I mean,
Jerry didn't even worry about it.
I loved that issue as a kid, but you're right. When you look at it, like the mechanism to get them together is pretty. It happens fast. It happens fast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, where is he when where is Spider-Man when Star of the Conqueror showed up?
Right.
And everybody else was helping.
Yeah.
You were saying that you saw the character one way, and the company kind of saw it not working, so they changed it to something you didn't buy. For a while, how much freedom did you have at the beginning? Because we were going through these older issues, and they have their own style.
Yeah.
They have their own characteristics. Even the art kind of reminds me of almost a throwback to Disney comics a little bit more so than the current DC comics at the time. Until they kind of made the character something that you didn't really connect with. Did you have a lot of freedom, or were there a lot of notes coming at you?
No, I could do pretty much what I wanted. The only restrictions I had was when CC changed things, which was often. But
right.
Yeah, and they were fun stories to write. All you had to do was come up with a premise, and they pretty much wrote themselves.
Right.
That wasn't true of Superman. Superman was complex.
Yeah.
Batman was even more so.
Well, that's one of the things that I so like about this run is that I feel like, from issue to issue, it's just like, and now here's this new wacky thing, or here's this like sort of interesting thing to explore, and it just nothing. It's like you just expect the unexpected, so it's almost like nothing surprises you. How wacky or how out there it gets. It just I thought it worked, and I always have a good time reading those.
I thought it worked too. It just didn't work as well as they wanted it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it could still be in print now.
Yeah.
It did better than any of those Dell things, those Disney things. But
So I think my first introduction to your work was Superman, of course, which I think you're probably most well known for. And Superman and Captain Marvel, Shazam share a lot of the same sort of core principles. They're both very good. They're both very heroic. I wonder if that sort of wholesomeness to those characters, is that something that you're automatically drawn to? Like, is it something you like to pull out of characters?
Yeah, I'm a Boy Scout. And I was a Cub Master when my kid was a kid.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, Julie told me when I first wrote my first Superman story, he said, well, I want you to try this Superman thing, but, Superman's the most difficult character to write. And for years I believed him just because he told me.
Yeah.
And then it occurred to me, nobody was doing it right.
Yeah.
That's why it was easier for me. I wasn't any better than anybody else. I just got it.
Right.
It's not an adventure. Well, it is an adventure story, but it's not about power. It's about moral and ethical choices.
Yeah.
And you start every story with, what do I do in this given situation if I have all the power in the world?
Yeah. All
the power in the world is a very seductive concept.
Absolutely. A character like Superman, I think, really forces a different approach. You can't just do... I don't think you can successfully just do like a villain of the week kind of story with Superman.
No.
You really have to get into those deeper issues, and the goodness and the power that he has can also be difficult and challenging for him as a character. And I think I always appreciated the way you brought that front and center and made that character, believable and viable as someone who is like very powerful and also very good.
Yeah, I mean, you have to believe who. It's like anything else. I was watching AOC on talking to the other Congress people, the other freshmen, and she was giving a lecture on how to use Facebook and Twitter and so forth. And she said the first thing you got to do is be yourself, and she was right. And that applied to the way I approach Superman. Superman is the most powerful creature in the known universe. Let's let him be that.
Yeah.
And then you project from there. Everybody who ever got their hands on the character, first thing they ever did was depower him. I gave him more powers.
Yeah,
I made
more
him,
powers. Sure.
He could juggle planets.
Yeah. Yep.
Murphy Anderson liked juggling planets. He liked that. So we got along well.
I know you career-wise, you were primarily a DC guy.
Yeah.
Though myself, I'm a Marvel fan. And I read your Hulk comic recently, and I was just wondering what was your experience like being a guest writer in this different company? Did the experiences different that much?
Well, yeah. I mean, they expect you to write plot style.
Right.
That's all. The reason I did that, I'll tell you, the reason I did that was because Stan was such a good guy.
Okay.
I would have fights with Julie. Julie and I were both street kids from New York, and we just would yell at each other constantly. And it was fun. But every once in a while, it would turn into a real argument, and we weren't speaking to each other for a month. So whenever I got in a hole, I went to Stan, and I said, Julie and I aren't speaking, and, Stan hardly knew Julie, but he didn't much like him. So he'd give me work.
Okay.
The first time I called him up. I made an appointment to see him in his office, a supplicant. And I said, I need a body of work. I need like 4 books a month to start with. He said, you can have 1 book, maybe 2. So he gave me this Hulk story. He took me around to Shooter or Archie or whoever was editor-in-chief that 10-minute period.
Right, yeah.
They'd find me something. He'd always find me something. It was very good of him. And then by the time I was finished with the story, I, made up with Julie and I'd go back to work at DC.
Sure. And
it didn't matter. It didn't matter because we were all buddies. We didn't buy into that corporate bullshit. It was all hype. The rivalry between Superman and Captain Marvel. There was no rivalry. I was writing both of them. It's all just promotion.
Right.
Stan was great.
Well, I have to say, you wrote one of my favorite Superman stories of all time. Many that I enjoyed, but there's one that I've had, basically as long as I can remember. I've read it a million times, and it's the debut of Kristen Wells as Superwoman. And of course, I read the little footnote that said, this character first appeared in Miracle Monday. So, I tracked down a copy of that and read that book, and I just love that character. And I know she popped up every now and again after that. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the creation of that character and what your ambitions
the Superwoman character?
Yeah, and what your ambitions for her were going forward.
Well, I wanted her to come back.
Yeah.
And it was too late in my run. I mean, there was political intrigue going on. So I would have liked her to. I mean, in the second of the Superwoman stories I did, the last page of it was her going back to the future, getting back together with a boyfriend who was a professor at Columbia. And there was a collage of all these adventures she hadn't gotten into yet.
Yeah.
But they were all historical facts. And I just thought that was so cool. I wanted to bring her back and have her do all the stuff that she had read about herself doing.
Right.
I love time travel.
Oh, I do too.
I created her as a character in Last Son because she was a graduate student, and then by the time she became Superwoman, she was a history professor.
Yeah. I was just always fascinated, as a kid reading that issue about, because when Kristen Wells is first talking about that character of Superwoman to her class, and she's talking about, she's one of the greatest superheroes the world ever knew, and she did all these amazing adventures, and I was just always so intrigued, and I wanted to hear those stories and read those adventures. So just
yeah, me too.
And it just didn't. So what exactly happened that she didn't come back?
My run ended. They wanted to change the direction of the character. I had a good 15 years in there. And the character was doing well for that whole time. I mean, there was no reason. There was no practical reason to do it, other than that the publisher at the time wanted to make a change.
Okay. Well, I love, like I said, I love the story. That's still one of my favorites. I still like to pull it out every now and then. I love that cover. I love the time travel element of it, and I just think it's so much fun. So.
Let's see. She was in the LutherCon 2 story, right?
Yes, she was. Yeah.
That was a product of a crazy weekend we had in San Diego. A bunch of
really?
people. It was me and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez and Diana Schutz and Scott Maple from Comics and Comics. And it all started because Scott kept saying, out of nowhere, Scott said, "What the with Lex Luthor's new costume?" And I just thought that was the funniest thing I'd heard all day. And it was like 11, 12 o'clock, and I said, "You know whose fault it is?" And Scott says, "Who?" I said, "Len Wein." Says, "Is he here?" "Yeah, Len's here." So we called up Len. He was downstairs from where we were. Scott gets on the phone and says, "What the with Lex Luthor's new costume?" And Diana cracked up laughing, and Corinda Carford was there. So Len heard these two girls laughing, and he had just been divorced at the time. So Len showed up at 2 a.m, and we just hung around the hotel where they put us up that year in San Diego, yelling and screaming about Lex Luthor's new costume. Everyone we saw, we went down to the bar and asked everybody we saw at the bar, "What the with Lex Luthor's new costume?" Most of them didn't realize, we were responsible for it.
Right.
Stupid ass costume.
Well, I know that I've read your Wonder Woman stuff. I've read some of your Batman stuff. I know you got a chance to play with quite a few of the characters, but I wonder if there's any that you always wanted to write that you never got a chance to, or maybe some more Marvel.
Strange.
Dr. Strange.
Yeah, I love Dr. Strange.
Okay. What about Dr. Strange pulled you in like that?
His Eastern mysticism background, his access to other dimensions. I'm a big fan of other dimensions. That's what time travel's about.
Yeah.
And the magic, whatever magic is, makes him a match for Superman. I would have loved to do a Doctor Strange Superman crossover.
Sure. Yeah, I would have read it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I guess he's also a character that would just give you the freedom to do whatever story you felt like doing that month.
Yeah. I would wake up in the morning with ideas running through my head. And I would say, "What character is this good for?" I still wake up in the morning with ideas running through my head. So I write them down, or I go talk to my kids about them or something.
Oh, well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate your insights on all of this. And I've certainly enjoyed your work for many, many years, and will continue to as I discover new things.
I'm doing I've got a podcast up and running.
Yeah, I saw that.
Miracle Monday and Last Son.
And you read sections of the stories.
Yeah, I will. I'm taking a break. It was work.
Yeah. Can you just find that anywhere? You find podcasts, or where's the best place for people to find that?
Yeah. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever that is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's out there in general.
Okay. Where can people find you online?
Elliot.maggin.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking to us. It was a lot of fun.
You're welcome.
And like I said, you've given us a lot of joy over the years, so thanks very much.
You're good. Oh, wait. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
You can talk.
Okay.
Jeez.
Fine. All right, I'm ready.
Just do it.
He brings up so many interesting points, like within there, that if we
wait. Now the podcast is back.
He brings up so many interesting points, like within this interview, that I wish that we had like 5 hours to keep like tugging on threads and finding things out. He said something in there about how it just got to a point where he just couldn't buy Superman and Shazam in the same world. And I thought that was a really interesting point, because it's absolutely true. When you read the comics of that era, I mean, Shazam was even retaining like that look, as you mentioned. He still has those like kidney bean eyes, and
going through this showcase, it almost feels like Tintin.
Yeah.
In its like mentality and some stuff. So
yeah, and then as the series progressed, the show, the 70s show, actually kind of bolstered the sales of the comics,
right.
And so there was an effort towards the middle of this run, around issue 30 or so, to try to get them to be a little bit more similar. So Shazam in the comics goes a little bit more towards the one we see in the show, where he's riding around in an RV with an old fella, like solving problems and things. And it did just become a little like, well, that doesn't really gel. So like, I absolutely know what he means.
Right.
And just, it's nice to have firsthand confirmation that Stan Lee was a nice guy. And even just sort of like tossing out a fun little story about Len Wein, who created Wolverine, Swamp Thing. I mean, he's just... So anyway, Anyway, thanks again, Elliot, for doing that. The podcast is Elliot Makes Things Up, and you can find that, as he said, online and on his website as well. I love that run. I think that would probably be that 70s run is probably like my favorite Shazam. I don't know if somebody who'd seen the movie or was just curious about the character would necessarily like that, because I think it's kind of a sentimental thing for me.
If you've seen the movie, and you're looking for a comic that is just like the movie, you can read Jeff Johns' Shazam, which is 6 issues?
Yeah, it's New 52. It's a one and done thing.
The movie is basically like somebody picked this up.
Beat, pretty much.
But also, they accidentally cast The Rock as Black Adam a little too soon, and then had to write him out of this script.
Yeah. So. Well, it's excellent. I mean, I really like that Jeff Johns collection. So yeah, I think if you just have sort of I'm interested, that would be the one to go to. I was not a huge fan of the Jeff Smith one, author of Bone and other things.
Yeah.
The Shazam and the Monster Society of Evil. Did you?
I read this. This was back when I was working like 3 jobs, and like I'd get like a lunch break where I'd hang out at the library, and they had the Monsters of Society of Evil. And so I think I just read this in my car, but I really liked it. I think it scratched a lot of itches I had at the time for just like fun superhero, non-continuity heavy stuff. This is just this is a little longer run, maybe 10 issues, maybe 12. But if you've read Bone, Jeff Smith's style is in there. It has a very cartoony feel to it. Kind of a classic take, a modern take on classic era. So yeah, I liked it. But
there's a couple.
I gave it 4 stars. I don't remember too much about it.
Jerry Ordway did one that was like a hand painted Power of Shazam, which started as just a graphic novel and then was a long running series. I was sort of okay with that one. I guess the atypical one that I like is Shazam: The New Beginning, which is from 1987. Author on that's Roy Thomas, and that I think that's only 4 issues, just a 4-part kind of reboot telling of it. I think that one's pretty strong. It is in a 30th anniversary collection that collects a couple others from that time. So my sentimental favorite is always going to be the 70s Shazam, and even the old 50s and 40s stuff is all public domain. So you can find all that stuff and download it. That's how I did with Mary Maverell. I downloaded the whole first volume and just put it on my e-reader. But let's talk for a minute about The Power of Hope with Paul Dini, because that's one we both read recently.
It's a big, I mean, it's still like an art book sized.
And I would say emphasis on art.
Yes. Yeah. Like, anytime you have Alex Ross, it's probably emphasis on art. So.
Yeah. It's almost more like a picture book than a graphic novel.
Yes.
It feels.
Yeah, it does. Billy is spending time at a children's hospital.
Right.
Just interacting with kids that are like his age, because he's a kid, so he can do things other superheroes can't. So he's meeting the kids. He's turning into Shazam, Captain Marvel, to hang out with the kids and visit them. One kid has bruises on his arm from his dad, so he goes to talk to the dad as both Billy and then Shazam.
Yeah.
But also he's realizing that some of the kids are very sick, and you can't help everybody when you're
I guess I think maybe I said dark. I think what I mean more is that it's heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's a much heavier story.
Yeah.
But that is in our system, so you can definitely grab that if you want that. On screen, he's I think there's some really good episodes of Batman Brave and the Bold. Use the character well. He's not great in Justice League Unlimited.
See, I liked him in Justice League Unlimited.
I liked him. I just don't like that episode.
This is during like the second season of Justice League Unlimited, where the Justice League is being questioned a lot. Maybe they're making some decisions they're not going to be proud of. Cadmus is kind of controlling the show, and they get Captain Marvel to have a fight with Superman. I liked that episode, and the Justice League do learn some heavy lessons at the end of the season. It's a great season. It's but Jerry O'Connell, I think, is Shazam in there, and he goes on to later play Superman in some of the DVDs.
He reprises Shazam in the short Superman Shazam Return of the Black Adam.
Yeah.
Which I think is really good.
Oh, yes. It's like 40 minutes long.
Yeah. You met a Shazam recently because you met Sean Astin.
I did.
Who's played him I think in Young Justice.
In
Justice League Action. Yep. Definitely Justice League Action. I'm not sure about Young Justice. Though I will say Young Justice, as much as I don't love that show, does a really cool Shazam episode where the world is split between an alternate world with adults and one with kids. And Shazam is the only one who can go through.
Right.
Which is cool because he's the only way they can communicate. So that's
Right.
neat. The 70s show, it's on DVD. It's on the DC universe.
Yeah.
It is very. It's kind of like to Shazam as the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno Hulk was to Hulk. It uses the character, but in a very different way.
Yeah.
Not a great representation, I think, of the history of the character.
Yeah.
But
or the history of man.
True. But it's fun. I mean, my son enjoys it.
Right.
I've had a good time rewatching it with him.
All right. We did all this because there's a Shazam movie
That's
in
true.
theaters.
Yeah.
And
I have a soft spot for Shazam. But yes.
That's true, yes. Shazam starring Zachary Levi.
Yeah.
Levy.
Yeah.
And I guess after his name, you say Mark Strong?
I guess.
Is the next biggest
I
name?
think so, probably.
None of the kids are like the kid stars.
Yeah.
So anyway, we saw an advanced screening of this. We talked about this last week, 2 weeks in advance. And the car ride home was just kind of like,
Yeah.
a lot of
That's the big takeaway.
Yeah.
That's I think, some movies like Aquaman, for example, I liked, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, man, I really liked that.
Well,
and Shazam had kind of the opposite effect.
the thing
for
with
me.
like Aquaman and Into Spider-Verse and even Venom in a way is that they have a very strong sense of what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Even if what you don't like, even if you don't like what they're doing, they knew what they were doing. And Shazam does not have that. Shazam has it's almost like Shazam himself, where there's just these two different I guess it shouldn't be, but there's like this darker demony stuff that's going on that has like some pretty frightening images and made me like, ugh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And then it's a heartwarming family tale with big elements.
There's a scene, we won't get into it, but there is a scene where the violence is just.
It felt like a certain scene from Dogma.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're seeing graphic violence, but it's still pretty upsetting. Like I certainly.
It's not a scene they would have put in the trailer that they were using to make you feel like this was like a fun family comedy.
No.
So.
And I don't know. I mean, I think your mileage will vary based on how much you like Zachary Levi's shtick. I don't really happen to.
Yeah.
But I think if one of the big problems with his portrayal for me was that some of the stuff I thought he did really well on, a really nice job on some of it. He and the kid who played Billy Batson are nothing alike.
No, they don't. Yeah.
Which
is funny because I guess never mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, the thing with that is, I think in some stories, Captain Marvel is just presented as Billy becomes a different person. And sometimes it's that Billy's personality carries over.
But in the movie, is the personality supposed to be carrying over.
Yeah, it
because
is.
Billy's talking
as Billy.
As Zachary Levi, but they're two completely different characters.
I would believe fully that neither Zachary Levi nor the actor who played Billy saw each other's performance, have seen each other in any other things. They were nothing alike.
Yeah.
So it's very jarring. Yeah. So you mix that with the the really goofiness of Zach Levi's portrayal with like the weird violence of the Savannah stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, you walk away thinking like, what was that?
Yeah.
So I was pretty unimpressed by it.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have been that hard to pick a tone and go with it. I think it's pretty obvious that the deep, dark, violent stuff does not play.
Yeah.
So that would have been a pretty easy fix. So I'm confused as to how nobody knew that.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think a lot of people will leave liking this one. But yeah, I didn't necessarily. And it was funny because you and I we were driving home and we were talking about that. And then I was talking to my sister who had also seen the advanced screening. And she had said this before I said anything. She said the exact same thing. She's like, I couldn't tell which tone they're going for. So I'm like, maybe everybody else will kind of
And they're
see this.
so far apart, the two tones.
Yeah.
It really is weird.
It's supposed to be scary, but it's also supposed to be heartwarming.
Yeah.
But there's no connections between the two. They're just two different movies.
Yeah. Same with Captain Marvel and Billy.
The superhero effects though are pretty solid in terms of like he's super fast and it looks good.
Yeah,
it looks like he's moving and flying at supersonic speeds, and it's not just like, oh, they just blurred him or something.
Yeah.
That all looks good, but there's not too many. All the action scenes are played for comedy.
They are.
And so there's not really any standout like action scenes.
I agree, and I was really kind of looking forward to seeing, because you know how I feel about the recent Superman portrayals. I was kind of looking forward to seeing that type of character like in action in a good way, and I didn't get that from this either.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't you know, I mean, there's certainly been worse superhero movies. I don't think it's like to hate, but I think I am very puzzled by the choices that they made, and I wouldn't rate the movie high.
I think an issue also for those of us that actually don't mind Zachary Levi, like not you, is that when you have an actor who's doing something that you like, but he can only be up there for at most like 50% of the screen time. It kind of has like a derailing effect when it's like he's gone now. It's like I don't know.
But I really think that if he and Billy had shared any kind of similar, if it would have, because you did not feel like you were watching the same character. So even if you're like, now you're seeing Billy in this form and now you're seeing Billy in that form, but no, you don't have that. So I agree with you.
Yeah. It's kind of the same problem the Hulk had until I guess Mark Ruffalo stepped in. Yeah. That you're like, oh, I don't mind watching Mark Ruffalo.
I liked watching Ed Norton, but
I
understand. I understand what you're saying.
So is this the Hulk episode now?
I wanted to love it. I really did. And I went in hoping to. And I did not leave with that.
Sorry, man.
So, all right. So, what's your one thing if you're going to recommend a Shazam thing to somebody? What's it going to be?
Shazam. Sorry, because it's the one word.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've read or seen.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Kingdom Come, because it's a good DC thing. But I guess if it's a Shazam thing, I might just say watch Public Enemy, Batman, Superman, Public Enemies.
Okay.
He's in there very quickly, and if you end up liking or not liking the character in that short appearance, that would probably tell you how far your mileage could take. Or the Justice League Unlimited episode, I think.
Yeah, I would say watch the Superman Shazam short.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good. About 40 minutes long. I think that's a really good intro to the character. Good use of Superman. Good
also
use
Jerry
of Shazam.
O'Connell?
Also Jerry O'Connell. Yep. And I think if you've got any kind of taste for like Silver Age comics, then I think Shazam Showcase is a lot of fun. Otherwise, I would say go Jeff Johns.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would probably be it, really.
Yep.
But again, I'd actually say don't read the Jeff Johns comic if you're going into the movie because
agreed. Yeah, it's too close.
You'd be more surprised. I think. Yeah, it's almost beat for beat.
Yeah,
the same story.
Yeah, if you haven't read it by now, wait till you see the movie.
Yeah,
I think.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it.
This is gonna do it.
We missed it. Well, I want to once again thank our guest, Elliot S. Maggin. You could find Elliot and his work on elliot.maggin.com. You can find his podcast, Elliot Makes Stuff, anywhere you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
We had a good time chatting with him. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week when we talk about the Edgars.
Podcast has stopped, but we'll also talk about the Hugos, probably the Hugo noms.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But the Edgar the awards will be out.
Okay.
All right.
You know what?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I just figured we'd do a big Hugo episode when it's time. But
that's true. Mm-hmm. All right. I guess that's it.
Okay.
I gotta go. I got a program.
I know. That's why I didn't do library news because this guy's got to run.
Yeah.
To a program.
Oh, thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.